On this slide, we are discussing CVE 2024-6646. This particular vulnerability affects the Netgear WN604 up to version 2024-0710. The vulnerability type is information disclosure and is cataloged under CVE-200. The attack vector for this vulnerability is remote, meaning an attacker can exploit it via the web interface. Specifically, the affected component is the /downloadfile.php endpoint. This results in information leakage, which has a low confidentiality impact. It's important to note that an exploit for this vulnerability is publicly available, making it more accessible for potential attackers to take advantage of this flaw. Understanding this vulnerability will be critical for those managing affected Netgear devices to mitigate potential risks effectively. Now, let's delve into the severity and metrics of the CVE 2024-6646 vulnerability. This vulnerability is assessed using the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, CVSS versions 3.1 and 4.0. For CVSS version 3.1, the base score is 5.3, classifying it as a medium severity issue. The vector string indicates the following properties. It's network exploitable, AVN, requires low attack complexity, EL, no privileges are required, PAR-N, and user interaction isn't needed, UIN. It has an unchanged scope, SU, and only impacts confidentiality to a low degree, CL, with no impact on integrity or availability, AN. In CVSS version 4.0, the base score is slightly higher at 6.9, still within the medium severity range. The vector here reflects network exploitive N, low attack complexity L, no attack technique required N, no privileges required, no user interaction necessary, UIN, low confidentiality impact, VCL, and no impact on integrity, VIN, or availability, VAN. The scores for security controls, SC, state integrity, and state availability, SN, remain neutral, indicating no additional influence. This vulnerability falls under the Common Weakness Enumeration, CWE identifier CW200, which refers to the exposure of sensitive information.
In this slide, we delve deeper into the vulnerability description. The issue at hand is found in the Netgear WN604 web interface. This interface allows for the manipulation of the file argument in the endpoint downloadfile.php. This manipulation leads to information disclosure where sensitive data can be accessed. This vulnerability can be exploited remotely, and the exploit is already publicly available. This means that anyone with knowledge of this exploit could potentially use it to gain unauthorized access to sensitive information. It's noteworthy to mention that, as of now, there has been no response reported from the vendor regarding this vulnerability. This highlights an important aspect of cybersecurity management, the need for timely and effective vendor response to identified vulnerabilities. As the quote suggests, security vulnerabilities aren't just an IT concern, they're an organizational risk. This underscores the critical nature of addressing vulnerabilities promptly to safeguard not just IT assets, but the entire organization's security posture.
To illustrate how an attacker might exploit the vulnerability in the Netgear WN604 web interface, we'll walk through a couple of example commands. By using common tools like curl and wget, an attacker can easily retrieve sensitive files from a vulnerable device. First, let's look at how an attacker could use curl. Shell curl, ht/target-ip downloadfile.php file config. This command sends a request to the target IP, directing the downloadfile.php script to fetch the config file. Any sensitive configurations stored within this file can then be accessed by the attacker. Similarly, using wget is just as straightforward. Shell wget /target-ip paste download file equals config. Like curl, wget can be used to download the sensitive file remotely. These commands highlight the simplicity with which an attacker could leverage this vulnerability to gain unauthorized access to potentially sensitive information. Understanding these examples underscores the importance of addressing vulnerabilities promptly to protect your organization from such exploits. Now, let's look at a real-world scenario to understand this vulnerability better. Imagine an attacker identifying a vulnerable Netgear WN604 device within a corporate network. The attacker can exploit this vulnerability to access sensitive configuration files stored on the device. This scenario highlights the critical importance of following best practices in network security. One such practice is applying the principle of least privilege. By ensuring users and applications have only the minimum necessary access rights, we reduce the potential impact of a compromised system. Additionally, implementing network segmentation can significantly enhance security. By compartmentalizing sensitive systems, even if an attacker manages to breach one segment of the network, they will face greater challenges in moving laterally to access more critical areas. Now, let's focus on mitigation strategies to protect your network against potential vulnerabilities like the one identified in the Netgear WN604 device scenario. Firstly, compartmentalization is crucial. This involves setting up secure areas within your system where trust boundaries are clearly defined. By creating these secure segments, you can better manage access and reduce the risk of an attacker moving laterally through your network. Next, network filtering is indispensable. Firewalls should be used to block unauthorized access to your network. They act as a barrier between trusted internal networks and untrusted external networks, adding an essential layer of security. The principle of least privilege, POLP, is another key strategy. It means limiting access rights for users and applications to only what is strictly necessary for them to perform their roles. This minimizes the potential damage if an account gets compromised. For tools to aid in these mitigation strategies, I recommend utilizing Nessus and Wireshark. Nessus is effective for scanning vulnerabilities, including the one affecting the Netgear WN604 device, among others. Meanwhile, Wireshark is an excellent tool for monitoring network traffic and detecting exploit attempts, helping you stay ahead of potential attacks. By implementing these strategies, compartmentalization, network filtering, and POLP, and leveraging these tools, you can significantly improve your network's security posture. In conclusion, let's summarize what we've covered. We examined the vulnerability CVE-2024-6646, which impacts the Netgear WN604 device. This vulnerability leads to information disclosure and has been rated with medium severity. In terms of mitigation, we emphasize the importance of applying network segmentation to isolate systems and limit exposure. Adhering to the principle of least privilege will help minimize the access rights for users and applications, reducing potential exploitation pathways. Additionally, ensure the firmware is updated to the latest versions to patch this vulnerability. For next steps, it's crucial to take immediate action by patching and applying these updates. Implement continuous monitoring practices, including the use of intrusion detection systems, to quickly identify and respond to potential threats. Also, regularly review and audit permissions and access controls to maintain a secure environment. By following these steps, you will enhance your security posture against vulnerabilities like CVE-2024-6646. The current slide provides key references for further information on the discussed vulnerability, CVE-2024-6646. You can refer to the National Vulnerability Database, NVD, for detailed descriptions and updates on this specific CVE. Additionally, MITRE's Common Weakness Enumeration, CWE, includes related vulnerabilities, such as CWE-200, which pertains to information disclosure. For community discussions and potential fixes, you can check GitHub issues. Furthermore, VulDB entry often includes comprehensive details and user-contributed insights on the vulnerability. These resources will be instrumental in deepening your understanding and assisting in the mitigation process.
Thank you for following along with the course. Did you enjoy the content? If you did, please make sure to leave a like. I encourage you to comment below with your thoughts or any questions you might have. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more insightful content. Lastly, if you found this course valuable, consider sharing it with your friends and colleagues. Your engagement helps us improve and provide more useful material.